Hello, everybody, and welcome to UGASports Rumors versus Facts. I am Blaine Gilmer here with Jed May and Trent Smallwood. Trent back with us after having a week off doing a little basketball coaching of his own. Looks like maybe, hey, Georgia may be calling you up soon, Trent. I mean, there's some need for some coaching assistance up there with the Bulldogs.
Unfortunately, I only got about 2 more wins than Georgia has, so in SEC play. So they might not be calling me.
I hear you. Trent's team gets after it, though, for sure. But Jed, Trent, and myself are here to talk Georgia football recruiting, as the class of 2022 is really, for the most part, the hay's kind of in the barn, guys. But there's these last 3 or 4 spots maybe that could be open. And we say maybe because everything's fluid right now with the numbers in the portal and things like that. Of course, I said that word portal that triggered everyone on the vent this week, of course, when Jermaine Burton and JT Daniels decided to enter it. Jermaine Burton has subsequently entered, went to Tuscaloosa to join the Alabama Crimson Tide. So we will talk about that, I'm sure, and we'll get into our vault questions and things like that. But first, let's kind of touch on the ending of this class. There's very few prospects that Georgia is on right now towards the end. And there's some guys even that are committed that has some stories going either way. But before we touch on anybody in particular, Jed, Trent, y'all just kind of take a turn here. Anything, at this point in time in the recruiting cycle that kind of jumps out to you right now?
I mean, for me, it's what happens at running back, because I mean, I'll go ahead and raise my hand on this one. I spoke to sources a couple of weeks ago saying, Jordan James is still solid. He's exploring his options, all this kind of stuff. And then now it's looking like more and more like he's not going to end up a part of this class. Obviously hasn't signed yet. And that had seemed to be kind of the case for a few days. And then, Georgia offers 2022 running back Andrew Paul out of Texas last night, further solidifying, the notion that Jordan James isn't going to be in this class. So it's interesting to see what happens. Is James leave? Does Paul come in? Does Georgia only end up with Branson Robinson in the class? So I think that position over the next, 7-10 days is going to be a really interesting one to watch.
Yeah, I don't think you can just take one running back in this class, because you have Lavasio Carroll. He left. Then you had your 2 running backs went to NFL. So you got Kendall Milton, you got Kenny McIntosh, you got Dejon Edwards, which had rumors around him with hitting the transfer portal. I guess at the end towards the end of the year. So you're really going to be short on numbers, and you're going to have to go out and get a running back in the transfer portal, which is not easy to do, especially a quality running back. So I think getting another running back in this class is definitely important. I think Georgia sits well for Christian Miller. I think they're going to try to get some guys on campus over the next week. But I think Georgia likes where they're at, especially in the class. They kind of hit on their defensive backs. They hit on their at the end. They kind of hit on edge player with Marvin Jones. I think the one need in this class is that running back spot. And I tried to tell y'all back in September Jordan James was going to be in this class, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly looking like he's technically at this point still committed to Georgia. So we'll see what ends up happening. But he took that visit out to Oregon to visit. Dan Lannon, of course. There's a natural relationship there. Not necessarily sure if that's the spot that Jordan James ends up if he does indeed decommit from Georgia and go elsewhere. But it does seem like where there's smoke, there's fire, so to speak. And with Andrew Paul being offered by Georgia, and we'll have questions on Paul specifically here in a little bit. But with him being offered by Georgia, it does at least, tend to lend itself to you thinking, okay, there's contingency plans being made. There's differences going on here. Of course, there were some official visitors this weekend, Shamar Stewart, and then also E.J. Lightsey out of Fitzgerald, a linebacker. Of course, Stewart is a edge defender out of the Miami area down there. And, guys, people want to infer a lot of things about Shamar Stewart and him being on campus this late and things like that. But I believe that this recruitment of Shamar Stewart was one that Georgia kind of hit its peak in more towards the middle of this recruitment and not at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to make a late run to try to, I guess, flip that. I mean, I thought Georgia was third coming into January, behind Miami and Texas A&M. I still think this Miami visit. Then, I went when I was down in Orlando, talking to Shamar, talking to some people around Shamar. I got a lot of the Miami vibe just from just talking to him, just the kind of the pressure that's been put there, and kind of Miami wanting to go back, get back to where they were under Cristobal. And I felt down there that Miami was kind of that team that was trending towards being that number one spot. And then of course Texas A&M's there, so I think Georgia's still sitting. They have a shot, of course. They got them on campus, but I do think they're trolling.
Jed, when it comes to Shamar Stewart, a lot of this scenario reminds me of the Smoke Bowie scenario, where there was, some late talks with Georgia, things like that. A lot of interest in Georgia early. Of course, Smoke was actually committed to Georgia at one time, but he's pretty far down the line, it seems, with Texas A&M, and then of course Miami trying to make up that ground too, like Trent just said.
Well, and the thing too is Miami has come on so strong with the visits, and I believe they were, they saw him on the first day of the contact period. I believe he's going. Yeah, exactly. He's going. I mean, he's been on campus once, I believe, in January already. He's going back this weekend. So that whole hometown thing is really pulling on him hard. So Georgia tried. It certainly wasn't for lack of trying. And I wrote this in the Fact or Fiction piece I did for Rivals the other day. I mean, they do a good job with their official visits. I mean, no one really thought Georgia had much of a for Jones, and he comes here on an official visit, is blown away, and is now signed and a part of the class. But like you said, Trent, and you too, Blaine, I just think it's too little too late at this point. Georgia gave it a good run, but is going to finish, either second or third, but definitely not first.
Yeah, I agree as well on that. So, we've talked about the Jordan James issue. We've talked about Andrew Paul a little bit. That we'll get more on that in a minute. You mentioned Kristen Miller, Trent. This is a young man who has a huge personality. He's a guy who has NIL written all over him, meaning not in terms of like people throwing money at him, in terms of him being able to create his own opportunities. One, because he's a talented young man, and two, he's very outgoing, very personable. He's going to be people are going to want to put him, if he's performing, they're going to want to put him in commercials. They're going to want to have ad reads with him and things like that. Obviously, he went out and visited Dan Lanning as well the same weekend that Jordan James did. He was down at, I believe it was Florida A&M this weekend, HBCU. So, he's taken a very circuitous route. Everything seems to be pointing towards the Georgia Bulldogs still. I've not heard anything that would make me think otherwise, but we learned with the Kamari Wilson situation, the longer a player who has every opportunity in the world to commit does not commit, the more chance it is that something crazy happens at the end.
Yeah, I like Christian Miller just because of relationships here. I mean, I know there's a lot involved. He wanted to postpone till February signing day, but you kind of see the relationship. You went to the All-American game, and he coached Marvin James Jr. and
Marvin Jones,
Marvin Jones, Michael Williams. He coached those boys, and then he's got the relationship with Oscar Depp's family. You see Oscar Depp's mom all the time on Twitter saying, "Chris, you better not go nowhere."
If y'all don't follow Mary Delp, as if you're a Georgia faithful and you don't follow Mary Delp, you're missing out on some quality entertainment over there, because she is relentless.
Oh, she is. It kind of reminds me of Jake Fromm's mom back in before, just kind of heading up the recruitments. But I just like Christian from a relationship standpoint. He's good friends with Michael. He's worked with a bunch of these Georgia commits over the years, and there's never any, I guess, package deals, as you say, but just think there's way too many relationship ties, along with his relationship with Georgia and the coaching staff, to keep him away from Georgia.
Yeah, and Jed, he's got a couple of teammates either already committed or in this class or already signed with Georgia as well, Cedar Grove teammates.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Trent went through all those relationships, and that doesn't even begin to to count the CJ Madden in the 22 class, Kane Lee in the 23 class, both of his teammates at Cedar Grove, and they've both been committed. I mean, for several months now, so they've been in his ear for weeks and weeks, telling him, "Hey, come to Georgia, complete the Cedar Grove trio or Cedar Grove 3 or whatever it is." I can't remember the exact terminology they
Sweep.
use.
The Cedar Grove
Yeah, exactly.
sweep.
Cedar Grove sweep. So, like Trent said, there's all these things. I mean, Alabama offered him real late and a shot to get in there. Miami, he's going down to Miami this weekend. Florida A&M got an official. All these different things that are sort of tugging at him. But at the end, we've said it on the show a bunch. It comes down to relationships. 9 times out of 10 with these guys. And I think, Trey Scott. Even with all of the weird ups and downs that were going there in the summer, Trey Scott had kept up with him. And obviously Kirby Smart, those other guys, Mike Hill. I just think relationships, at this point, I think they went out, but there's still a lot that could change. Like you said, Blaine, like we saw with the Kamari Wilson situation.
I think another thing to look at is Georgia has, coming off a national championship, you don't see many freshmen come in, kind of have a chance to play early. I think Christian Miller has a chance to play early just because of Georgia's need I think he could slide out and play 5-tech. And I think Georgia's got a need at that position. Of course, I think he's going to play a lot of 3-tech defense tackle. But I do think he has versatility to slide up and play that 5-tech. And with Georgia only really returning the Tremel Walthor,
Zion Logue.
You got Zion Logue, but Logue's played a lot in the middle throughout the year. So you have a need right there at that Trayvon Walker spot from last year. And I think Christian Miller, how explosive he is, and I think he could come in and play early right there.
He could, but I think too, when I look at him, I almost see a little bit more of Devontae Wyatt to me. Like he looks the way that we all went, a bunch of us went to the Buford game that he played in, and just the explosivity that he had getting through the line of scrimmage right there, playing whether at that point he was a shade, strong shade, or a 3 technique. He would move out and just hurt some guards across from him, and that's a good offensive line over there at Buford. So he was able to do some good things. And you're right. I think one big thing that is important to Christian Miller, right? He's a winner, right? Cedar Grove, he's used to being in the running year in and year out for a state title. So I'm sure Georgia's winning the national championship has an impact there. And then, of course, when you talk about Christian Miller, you also, have to factor in Ryan Day and Ohio State. They're a factor in this, but they used their in-home visit early on. Kirby Smart still yet to use his home visit. I'm sure he's going to do it here soon. So once that happens, you got to feel that's more momentum for Georgia. So that's Christian Miller on that piece. Now, I spoke. We were kind of, as we got into all this, we were talking about official visits and Shamar Stewart. We'll talk about EJ Lightsey here for just a minute. He took his official visit. Did the whole gamut of the deal, right? Got to be there with the coaching staff. Customarily when these guys go on their official visits, they end with breakfast at Kirby Smart's house, and that's kind of a way that ends up going in those visits. And I think all of that is a lot of momentum for a South Georgia kid. And whenever Kirby Smart, Trent, gets a chance to recruit a South Georgia kid, there's a lot of familiarity, a lot of relatability there between Smart and that player.
Yeah, and then he did have that breakfast at Kirby's, but I know it's probably an offer that he's been wanting. I've never talked to the kid, but it's probably a lot of South Georgia kids have those relationships with a lot of the coaching staff, Dale McGee and Kirby Smart and those guys, and they kind of. That's an offer that they always want. Georgia offer, whether or not they end up going to Georgia or not, this offer they always want. And Georgia, trying to fill a need where at the inside linebacker spot where they missed out on signing day. I think he would fill in nicely. He's a little undersized, but I had a chance just to watch a little film on him the other night, and And Joker's got a motor. He's fast. Like I said, he's a little undersized, but I think it's something to work with. And I think he could be like a special teams player, come in and, eventually move into a spot. But he's definitely got the speed. He's definitely got the intangibles. He's just a little undersized at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Talked to his high school head coach Tucker Pruitt down there at Fitzgerald, and Tucker Pruitt told me that he was actually bigger as a freshman
Wow.
and sophomore, a defensive end. He was a true defensive end, and they said he trimmed down, kind of slimmed down. He measured for them when they did their official measurements. He was at 6'2", 211 coming in. So I mean, he was 6'2", 211. I've seen him at other places measure 6'1", 205. So I mean, he definitely would probably want to get up around that 225. 230-ish mark that Georgia likes inside linebackers, especially with a little height to play at. But Jed, you would have to think, he still is planning on taking that visit to South Carolina this weekend, but you would have to think Georgia having an official visit with an inside linebacker after the crop of inside linebackers that they have just moved on to the NFL and the history that Glenn Schumann has. You would think that Glenn Schumann being down there multiple times in the last couple of weeks to visit him and offer him and communicate with him would carry a lot of weight.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a guy that's looking to develop and go, 3 or 4 years ago to the NFL, what more would you want than to play for Glenn Schumann? I mean, Channing Tindall is going to be an NFL player. Kawhi Walker is going to be an NFL player. And Kobe Dean was, the best linebacker in college football this year, is going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. I mean, there's so many guys that have been
put Tate Crowder in the league.
Tate Crowder. Yeah, he's literally put a guy that came out of high school as an outside linebacker, I believe, right? Channing Tindall did, and a guy that switched from running back to linebacker. Both of those guys, one is in the NFL, and one is going to be in the NFL very soon. So clearly, that track record, I mean, is one of the most impressive of any of the coaches on Georgia's staff. So I'm sure that was driven home Mr. Lightsey over the weekend, as well as the opportunity to try to come in and earn a spot, whether on special teams or in the rotation. And yeah, it's like you said, Trent, he could have an opportunity to come in and play on special teams, that's where Kirby Smart has said before. That's where these guys really, kind of cut their teeth and break ins on special teams with the goal of getting in the rotation down the line.
Yeah, and guys, I mean, all fair points there, Jed, but I had to throw this up there. As the NIL comes on, the NIL jokes are going to come on too. Harold Perkins decommitted from Texas A&M. I'm not sure if Georgia get on, but it's pretty good by James Bond here watching on the YouTube channel. A&M bounce a check because there's definitely some oil money being put to use over there. Some of those NIL deals, and they're all legal now, guys. I mean, it's NIL where you're able to pay players for advertisements for being representatives of the program to your business, and it's all legal. They can write it off on their taxes. That's just the way it's going to go now. And there's plenty of people with plenty of money down there in Texas.
Trent. I'm not a huge fan of NIL. I do think players should be getting paid for their name, image, and likeness. But I'm kind of happy that we can kind of openly talk about this now, because I guess over the past 5 or 6 years, you've had to kind of be hush hush about this on when we got on podcasts and stuff. So
yeah.
It's kind of good.
It's kids are on billboards. You've got different approaches to it, which we have a question on here so I won't get too far into it. So without any kind of further ado, let's go ahead and get into our vault questions. Just for those of you who don't know, maybe if you're just watching on the YouTube channel, one benefit of being a member of the UGASports Vault over at UGAsports.com is you get to ask questions on here every week. We also have lots of, private content or premium content when it comes to interviews with coaches, like I just did with the Fitzgerald head coach, Tucker Pruitt, on EJ Lightsey and kind of his recruitment. Jed, Trent, everybody's Brent Rollins is putting out, him and Dane are putting out articles that are private premium content. So make sure you're following along over there, and you can also, the benefit is submit one of these questions right here. So Jed, go ahead and start us off right here with our first question from the vault.
Yeah, we got some new font here. I like it. It says, if Stockton and Vandegrift had graduated in the same year, how would you have ranked them? And also, how does Arch Manning compare to other generational quarterbacks of the same age, as in Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, and Deshaun Watson?
Oh boy, we're starting off with a heater right off the bat over here when it comes to ranking hypothetical. There's nothing better than a good quarterback hypothetical here, Trent, to start us off between the Stockton and Vandegrift debate, which will rage on as Stetson Bennett continues to start for the Georgia Bulldogs in 2022.
I don't even know how to answer this question because I mean they're two different classes, so I don't even want to.
They're saying if they graduate in the same year,
but
who would you rank ahead of
how,
that?
but how do you like? Are you comparing his senior year to Vandegrift's senior year? Because last year, if I would have taken if Stockton would have came out last year, I would have taken Vandegrift because I thought Vandegrift. Of course, he's a year ahead at that point. But if you're looking at him this year, I think Stockton has something that a lot of people. I think he's just got the it factor to me because I know a lot of people around him. I know who he hit with a hitting instructor he had like when he was 12 years old, and I know at that time they were like maybe one day you'll do long jump in the Olympics. He was like, yeah, maybe I'll do that. But that's just his mentality. He thinks he can do anything, and that's good to have from a quarterback. You want a little bit of cockiness. You don't want to. I mean, you don't want like Johnny Manziel type, but you want that little bit of cockiness because he is leading the team. I think Stetson Bennett's had that little bit of cockiness. He don't really show it, but I think he's got that swagger that you want the team behind him. But I do like Stockton. I mean, I think Vandegrift it has the size advantage on him. I think he can make every throw. I think Vandegrift can be a physical runner. So I think if you're looking at strictly from an intangible standpoint, I think Vandegrift, but I just think Stockton has that it factor when you put him on the field. To me, he's always a guy that's going to practice like garbage, and he's going to get when the lights turn on the field on Friday night, he's going to light it up. So I like Stockton coming in. And I want to go ahead and talking about Arch Manning. When everybody sees the Manning name, they just I think it's just automatic goes in their head, and they look at Eli, look at Peyton, and they think statue. He's not a statue. He's a dual threat guy. I mean, he's not listed as a dual threat, but he's
4.6 laser. 4.6 laser.
4.6 laser. He can do what Monken is wanting to do. Like Monken's wanting a guy that can avoid the rush. Monken's wanting a guy that is a threat to run because it opens up his RPO stuff. Saw a lot of RPO stuff ran against Bama. Saw a lot of RPO stuff ran against Michigan. A lot of quick throws out where he had that option. The last throw to Bowers to put Georgia up by 8 in the national championships, that's an RPO. I think he has that ability to come in and run Monken's offense. He's not a statue, and as far as generational, that I think that'll be with time. I think see how he is when he hits campus. I don't want to list anybody in that category until I see what they do on campus, because you see a lot of 5-star quarterbacks come in the campus, and they're kind of, I mean, they're not as good as they were when they were in high school, but. We'll see on that, but I do like, I like what Georgia's quarterback situation is right now.
This just kind of related to the question here. They listed Lawrence, Fields, and Watson. To me, that's a game of which one of these things is not like the other. I don't think Justin Fields belongs in that conversation with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. You talk about what they maybe from the hype that they had around them, from what they actually did. I think Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson are like head and shoulders above where he was in that conversation. But that's neither here nor there. That's just me pointing out in that. But when you compare Arch Manning, I mean, when you project out ahead, one thing that is tough to compare, and this can be said for Gunner and Brock as well, he does not play against heavy, really good competition down there in New Orleans. Now, they schedule some really good teams. There's that team out of Tampa that they scheduled that when Kirby went out and watched Arch play this year in New Orleans, where he had the 68 or 70-yard touchdown run on Power Read that they installed 2 days before the game. They had never run it the whole season. I interviewed the coach at Nelson Stewart at noon. He said Arch told him on Wednesday, he's like, yeah, we ran this in middle school. You want to put it in real quick? And we'll do it. He said, I don't know. So they put it in, boom, 68 yards to the house. So, he's got a lot of that same kind of confidence. And I saw that. That's what I saw at Arch Manning. I was watching some junior highlights of his year. He scored a touchdown and did the whole, stomping, getting excited in the end zone thing. That's not your typical Manning decorum there, Jed. I mean, he was showing a little bit of fire in his game. Arch Manning was.
Yeah, and I think something that he has that, and y'all have been following recruiting more closely than I have, so tell me if I'm wrong, but this kid has had such a spotlight on him from the time he was in sixth grade because because of what his name is and all that. And I know all these guys are big prospects, and I think maybe Trevor Lawrence was the closest one in terms of just having that the savior label thrown on him, but he's dealt with that for a long time. So I think once he gets to college, whether it's Georgia or where Alabama, Jackson State, wherever, he's gonna be. I mean, he'll be used to it. I mean, this kid's been dealing with the stage for a long time, and I think Georgia has I mean, if nothing else, he's not a generational prospect from the state of Georgia. So that has to increase the chances.
Breaking news: Dave Portnoy, whatever his name is, and Barstool offers Arch Manning a $20 million deal to go to HBCU Jackson State as quarterback. That would be totally par for the course with everything that's going on in recruiting this day and time. But short answer: if Stockton and Vandegrift were in the same year, I would rank Brock Vandegrift over Stockton. Jed?
I think I'd take Stockton, but it's very close.
All right, so we are all split there in that one. Let's go to our next question. PA Dog 610. Jed, what we got?
Yeah, it says, does the UGA staff land any surprises next Wednesday, February 2nd, for the class of 22 that no one is really aware of?
I mean, Andrew Paul would be a surprise because he just popped onto the surface, but by nature, a surprise is something that's unexpected. So I don't see anybody out there that's unexpected. If there's a need, if there's somebody that maybe Georgia sees a really good, edge rusher pop out late, who knows? Harold Perkins just decommitted from Texas A&M. Does Georgia say, hey, well, we might as well give him a call and see what happens? And he has interest in the defending national champions. I mean, you never know. Kirby Smart is someone that will leave no stone unturned when it comes to improving his roster. But I would expect at this point, Trent, I would expect less surprise going into the signing day and more intrigue when it comes to this summer.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. Spring practice. I'm more interested to see what happens after spring practice because I think you'll see some movement in the transfer portal once again. And I think Georgia will have a better understanding of their team after spring practice and kind of, Georgia was kind of late to the game with the transfer portal because of them playing the national championship. And I know Alabama went out and landed 3 players, but Elias Ricks was going to Alabama no matter what once he got the green light. A couple of those players were, going to Alabama if they got the green light. So I think that was the how they've landed 3 guys in the portal. But I think Georgia's being patient, similar to what they did last year. They waited till summer before, late spring before they landed Darian Kendrick. And they waited, they're going to go through spring practice, kind of evaluate their team, see who made jumps with this freshman class, and see what needs they have. With Georgia having some of those guys return, Christopher Smith returning is and Tyke Smith returning is big, for their secondary. So that it's hard to land a transfer portal safety when you have guys coming in like that. And I'm not sure there's as much of a need there than there would be. But I think they could have a need to bring in another, edge guy. And depending on what happens in this class, they might need a running back. So it'd be something to watch.
Yeah, and I'm just going to kind of let Andrew Paul's highlights here. Running back out of Texas from Episcopal High School down there that got an offer here late. So that could obviously be one of the surprises that goes in there. But kind of as we're just letting people get a look at him and let those highlights run, Jed, I mean, I guess you got to kind of, like Trent said, you got to think, big picture here, and this coaching staff, what they know, they've already had some conversations with guys, right? And whether it's who knows, whether it's a Carson Beck that is at every bit right now intending to stay, compete, see how things go, maybe throughout spring. But who knows, things go throughout the spring. You may have one or two say, you know what, we gave it a shot, let's move on. Then Georgia may be in the market for more quarterbacks this summer. Who knows how things go? But right now it's a supply and demand type deal, and I think Georgia has pretty evenly dispersed this 2022 class, where they're not in a super need for anything except maybe here at the running back position this late in the 2022 class cycle.
Yeah, and I traded some messages with a guy that coaches Andrew Paul today, and he basically said, like, yeah, he was a good running back, and then he basically got a little more patient as the season went on. Instead of just slamming into the line, he let the plays develop, and then he became unstoppable. Like, the numbers he gave me were 1,100 yards, over 1,100 yards, and I think 15 or 16 touchdowns in 3 playoff games. And I had to double check. I was like,
wow,
are those season numbers? Or so I mean, it was.
Yeah, he was upwards of over the 2,200 yard mark for the season.
I mean, that's just, I don't care. Like, I mean, I don't care who your competition is. I mean, those are just stupid numbers. So, I think the big question is, will Georgia be able to get him on campus? I mean, it looks like, from what I can tell, he has 2 official visits left, I think. So theoretically, he could take one to Georgia this weekend. He could take an unofficial. And I guess that's the big question is, A, will Georgia get him on campus? And B, if they do, will they be able to surge to the top? He took an official to Clemson to Michigan, the past couple weekends. So we'll see. But yeah, Trent, I think you hit it right on the head. Basically, Georgia's going to go through these 15 practices or whatever in the spring, see some of those guys that are thrust into bigger roles, like, y'all talked about earlier, the Zion Logues and the Tramel Walthowers, guys like that, really evaluate more what they have and those guys and the guys behind them, and then see, okay, do we need to get a guy in the middle? Do we need to get another receiver, a running back, if you don't get 2 in this class, whatever? So the movement is really going to be, I think, May, June, July, once we get into the summer and after spring practice.
And these early enrollees, Michael
Yeah.
Williams is a guy that could come in and fill a need at that 5-tech with Walthor. But it just depends on does Kirby and Muschamp and company think they're ready for this stage? If he does, you won't see much movement at that, and unless somebody just comes out, this is a can't miss prospect, or can't miss from in the portal. But I think they're going to evaluate and see what they need, who's going to start across from Keeley. Just look at their options and move on and see if they need to fill any voids they have on their team. Kirby's always looking to upgrade his roster, and the reason why I say spring practice is I think Alabama's brought in like 8 or 9 Rivals 100 receivers over the past 2 classes, and now you bring in a transfer. Who's that going to take off after spring practice? So you're going to see movement in the transfer portal, just due to what's already happened in the transfer portal. So you're going to see movement after spring practice. It's just, is there a need that Georgia needs to fill right there?
Yeah. So when we talk about I was going to say Darius Smith. When we talk about the kind of who's left in this class, right? But kind of before we hit some more questions and other topics, I do want to just kind of put a bow on the end of this class. You got Darius Smith and Dylan Bell, both committed, that have affirmed their commitments and should be signing in February. Jordan James still committed right now, Jordan Bryant James, but it seems that he could be heading out elsewhere. I know we're not putting in, future casts for everybody and stuff like that on here, but safe to say we all feel pretty confident still that Kristen Miller ends up in the class. I think Shamar Stewart goes elsewhere. We're talking about Andrew Paul. We're kind of in wait and see mode right now. Does Del McGee get out there again? Does he get back out? Does he get out to Athens? Wait and see on that. And I think Georgia's in good shape with EJ Lightsey.
Yeah, I agree there. And I don't anticipate any surprises coming along. Honestly, there's just not many top rated prospects out there to have your surprises, because a lot of them are signed. So a lot of your uncommitted guys, you haven't seen them visiting Georgia necessarily. So like Jacoby Matthews and those guys. So I don't anticipate any surprises. I guess the surprise would be, an additional running back, whoever that might be, if Jordan Brett James likes to go elsewhere. But I don't anticipate any big name guys.
Gotcha. So now this is going to be more on the transfer portal, and some of this stuff is a little bit kind of unrelated to the 2022 class. So I wanted to wrap that up before we move on to these next segments here. And we've kind of already touched on this a little bit in our last talk, so we can be a little bit more brief on this. But Jed, what's realistic UGA fan 11 got for us?
Yeah, he wants to know, or he or she wants to know, the 2 position groups that we will see the most departures from come the summertime.
Yeah, when it comes to it, I mean, that people like to malign the Georgia receiver class, receiving core, like you said, Trent. But if Georgia does elect to bring one guy in that maybe pops after spring, you could see that could be a domino effect where you go one top profile guy in, a couple more mid-tier guys move out because they know that that's just one more guy in front of them on the depth chart.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any of their guys that played a large number of snaps. So like your AD Mitchell, I think Ladd McConkey, I think they're going to be in Athens. I don't think there's nothing to worry about there. But there is some guys to watch. I think wide receiver has pretty much hit. I guess. Or you've already seen that movement.
Well, and who knows what's going to happen with Kearis Jackson, if he's going to come back, if he's going to. Yeah. I mean, there's been an official word one way or another on there. I could see Kearis. I could see both ways for Kearis. I could see him saying, "Hey, I'm a leader on this team. I'm going to come back. I didn't have maybe the year that I wanted to have, despite winning the national championship. I'm going to come back and end my Georgia career." With a bullet, or he says, I really I've been surpassed here. I don't have as much opportunity. I'm gonna elect to go somewhere else.
And one thing that I'm watching is Don Blaylock's. After 1 year coming back from the 2 ACLs, he's had some time to, I guess, mentally recharge after those 2 injuries and see what kind of spring he has, because he was a weapon. He was a weapon from the slot, and he could cut into Kearis Jackson's playing time at the slot, and it would be again. It all depends on what happens in the spring. See what happens in the spring, and kind of reevaluate from there. But wide receiver is a position, quarterback's a position. I don't think
offensive line.
Offensive line a position, just because what's going to happen? You have your 2 tackles basically with Broderick and Warren McClendon returning. You have Tate Ratledge coming back. You have Cedric Van Pran coming back. Then you got Warren Erickson.
That'll probably play somewhere.
You got Warren Erickson. So what are you going to do? Because you got some highly, you got your Micah Morris. You got
Dylan Fairchild,
Marius Mims. You got some highly touted guys, kind of waiting in the wings. And, you're not going to see these highly touted guys wait until a lot of these highly touted guys wait until their junior year to play now when the transfer portal is an option. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on the offensive line.
Absolutely. So offensive line, receiver, mainly ones, quarterback could be another one as well there. Jason 17. Do you have any insight into UGA's recruiting pitch utilizing NIL? Have any prospects talked about different approaches from school? Jed, when you've been talking to guys, have any of them answered that NIL question for you of what maybe Georgia's said, anything like that to you?
Most guys haven't mentioned it, honestly. I believe it was Ruben Owens when I talked to him after he visited in the summer. I believe he mentioned, Georgia, really pitching, hey, we're close to Atlanta. We can give you a big package, all this kind of stuff. But most of the guys that I've spoken to don't mention it a ton. I think just there's a lot more pressing matters, I guess, at the front of UGA's pitch. And I think that might be something that they have to take more into account going forward. Do they have to emphasize it more, or they're not emphasizing it enough right now? Do they have to maybe change how they emphasize it or what they project? So, because there's guys, NIL got Jackson State Travis Hunter, right? And I know that's an extreme case and all that kind of stuff, but it's something that these kids more and more are going to be thinking of. So,
Texas A&M, 15 guys
yeah,
at the Under Armour game.
Exactly. There you go. So
Well,
it's something. Yeah, there you go.
I know specifically, I was talking to Justice Haynes and I asked him that question about, hey, has Georgia said anything? And he gave that answer saying, Georgia likes to hammer home their proximity to Atlanta, a major market, things like that, like you said, Jeb. But he also said that Kirby Smart, everybody needs to understand it is a rule that the universities cannot set up these deals for the players. So what he said that Kirby Smart was clear about is he said, listen, you come to Georgia, you're going to get, he said, we had College Game Day 5 times this year. That's what Kirby told him. He said at Georgia, they had College Game Day 5 times this year. So when that happens and you perform, there's a lot of eyeballs on you and people come to you. He said that Georgia has close to 20 guys signed with Zaxby's right now doing local, regional, maybe even some national deals, and he said that's a monthly check that they're getting in from Zaxby's to do these radio spots and posters, TV ads, that kind of stuff. So they are mentioning, they can't say, hey, here's what we'll get for you because that's against the rules. But what they can say is, this is what our guys are getting. Go around, look at attorney billboards around, and you see Jordan Davis plastered on all of them. The more, a high tide raises all boats, right? So Georgia winning, more opportunity to get NIL, opportunities. Trent, anything before we go to the next one?
Tacky, man.
Yeah. Oh man, Tackies. Bear Alexander had a mound of Tackies up there. He had a Tackies table cover over there, signing everything. Background. I mean, he was tackied up over there. So yeah, for sure, there's opportunities.
I really think, I think this is. I think this nil could very well get out of hand, and I think eventually it's going to be. I think you better take advantage of it now because I think it's eventually going to be regulated somewhat. But just because it's going to turn into a crap show basically with the transfer portal attached to it. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 2 or 3 years with the direction this goes.
Yeah, no, for sure. Jed, go ahead. Next question here.
From Sick'em Dogs, what do you see Sammy Brown playing in college? What position, I'm assuming, do you see Sammy Brown playing in college? And will he end up a 5-star? Who leaves early?
If Sammy Brown's not a 5-star, then
stars are pointless.
then I've not seen one. This is a young man who dominates football games, and this is not. You can't say this is like a Gunnar Stockton, Brock Vandegrift, Arch Manning thing where they play low-level competition, that kind of stuff. He plays in a very competitive classification. I think it's 4A with Jefferson, and he plays some very star-studded teams. And Sammy Brown looks like a man amongst boys. I think he plays linebacker, inside linebacker. He's strong as an ox. I think he plays inside linebacker in college. And I would say that Georgia is in as good a shape as anybody. Georgia and Clemson are those kind of 2 favorite programs.
Trent? Yeah, I agree. I think he's a linebacker. I've always said he kind of has Nate McBride's speed, but he's also about 4 or 5 inches taller and not as stiff. So he can fly, he can hit. He would be very good at the inside linebacker position in the way Georgia likes to use him.
His dad is the defensive coordinator there at Jefferson and was the head coach at Commerce for a long time. So he's the son of a coach. He understands the game. He's been around it a lot. Just complete package there. Sick'em Dogs has a follow-up question, Jed.
Yeah, he wants to know, why does the state of Georgia not turn out more truly elite receiver prospects? Any guys coming up that may fit that description?
Camden Lee is going to be, I think, a good slot position. Slot receiver. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, everybody's after him. Trent, is there any others that come to mind when you're thinking about Georgia wide receiver talents? I don't know. That is a good question, is why there haven't been more, top of the top. I mean, you've seen some guys, obviously some guys come out of Georgia with, going all the way back to like Calvin Johnson, you know, and Terrence Edwards and those kind of guys that played coming out of Georgia, but maybe not as many lately, you know.
Yeah, I mean that is an interesting question because 707's big here. That a lot of people transfer into this area for jobs and stuff. So I've never really thought about that, but that is an interesting question. I think it's you definitely see more, I guess, offensive line, defensive line, running backs, come out of this area, and not as many wide receivers. I think a lot of the wide receivers you see come out of Florida, Texas, place like that. So that's definitely an interesting question that I haven't thought much about.
I mean, Travis Hunter's a pretty good receiver out of the state of Georgia, and he
Yeah,
can play receiver or DB.
yeah, he's definitely good. But what are you? I guess I'm looking at those 6'3", 6'4" guys that have a motor. You don't really see many of those. I mean, you had Jaden Hazelwood a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't see many of those. I guess top rated guys come out.
Yeah, it's for sure. But I don't say. I mean, don't y'all think? Am I wrong in kind of projecting what Camden Lee could be? He's at Westlake right now. I just feel like every time I go and see him play, whether it's 7-on-7 or see him play, in a high school game, I feel like he's always, whether it was back when he was at what was the school that he was at before he went to Westlake? He was over there where Emory Floyd played. I can see the team right now. I saw him play against Gainesville.
Gosh,
They're down there by McEachern. I can't think of it, but he's down with whichever school he's been at. He's done phenomenal. He's played since he was basically a freshman in high school, and I think he's a shifty receiver that can end up being very, very good going forward. But no other names, jump off to mind right now. I will tell you this: Caleb Downs, and that is one. Josh Downs, who's at North Carolina, and there's been rumors about him. He put up 1,300 yards receiving for North Carolina this year. He was out of North Gwinnett High School. He's a Hillgrove. Thank you, Jay Nelson. I'm thinking of Hillgrove. It finally came to me. That's where Camden Lee was before, or Caden Lee, not Camden Lee. Caden Lee came before he went to Westlake. He was at Hillgrove. But when you talk about Josh Downs, that was an elite receiver that ends up going to North Carolina. Who knows? Does he enter the transfer portal? Yet to be seen. But Caleb Downs, guys, I don't know how much you've seen Mill Creek play, but Caleb Downs, he's going to be a safety at the next level. He could, if he wanted to, he could be an elite receiver as well. The guy's got tremendous ball skills and great route running ability as well, but definitely going to play safety at the next level.
I was going to say, I think maybe KJ Bolden at Buford could possibly end up as a receiver.
Oh, that is a great point, Jed. KJ Bolden, and that's down the line a little bit further, 2024. Right. He is going to be the real deal. I think he's the type of guy that can be a game-breaking type receiver at the next level, and Georgia has already hosted him several times. He's been in meetings with Todd Monken. He is a priority for Georgia early on in his recruitment.
Yeah. Who is the I'm trying to think of the kid down I'm trying to look. As it Hopkins?
DeAndre?
DeAndre. He'd be pretty good. Down at Thomas County, Adam Hopkins. He's another one of those a smaller type receiver, slot guys, but I've seen he's pretty good. But
I think we're all in agreement though, Trent. That's a great call by Jed. KJ Bolden projects to be a phenomenal receiver once he gets to college.
Yeah, definitely. He KJ Bolden is the real deal. I went and watched Buford a couple times, and when you're the best player on the field at Buford, you're doing something, especially at that age. And he's out there at 15, 16 years old, being the best player out there. So, yeah, I like that pick.
And we've got two more questions we'll wrap up with here. Show enough 253. Is NIL really going to be a huge determining factor for schools like Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State, seeing as they all finished behind Texas A&M minus spending $30 million on their class? Well, there was money spent. I mean, there's a recruiting budget spent. It's not like they're just writing people handwritten letters asking them to come. There's money being spent by Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State to try to bring these guys in. I just don't think they backed up the Brinks truck in the similar fashion that Texas A&M did this time around, Trent.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're going to see money spent, but I also think you're going to see, I guess, NFL draft picks come out, and I think that's going to be another important thing. Watching this draft, seeing a bunch of Georgia, Alabama guys go day 1 and day 2. There is nil, and there is that money coming in, but you're going to make a whole lot more money if you get drafted in the first round or second round. So yeah, I think you'll see Georgia and Alabama kind of start working nil a little bit more, but at the same time, as long as they're pounding out draft picks, I think that's going to be an additional incentive to come play for the university. Playoffs and all the recognition that those teams are getting. You mentioned game day, playoffs, national championship. They have a lot of recognition that's going to get them seen and get. But I don't know about the recruiting standpoint. I think Georgia and Alabama will have to adapt there because Texas A&M went all out.
Yeah, Jed, I think that, Harold Perkins here decommitting, I think that you're starting to see maybe a little hairline crack in the foundation, right? Because, eventually all these guys, it's going to be great if you've got a structured deal that says, hey, if I stay this long at Texas A&M, I can make these many tens of thousands of dollars. But like Trent was pointing out, if you, really go out there, and maybe some guys, it may be even upwards of six figures. But if you're not on the field, if there's so much talent there and you're not on the field, you're not being able to produce, and there's only one ball to go around on offense, and you're not getting opportunities. Some of these guys will let, even if it's structured into a quote unquote contract that they've had to sign, whatever, they'll leave some of that money on the table and go somewhere a la Jermaine Burton to go get the numbers they want to, try to live out their NFL dreams.
Yeah, and I think, when you look at, this year Texas A&M spent $30 million, whatever. Like, that's not going to be, and maybe I'm just naive and don't know how much oil is in the world, but I feel like that's not something that can happen every class, right? I mean, eventually that money, either the money is going to somewhat run out, or recruits are going to say, hey, okay, we're going to get, and let's be honest, most like the guys like, Travis Hunter, like most of these guys aren't getting these massive deals. I mean, most of the guys, Blaine, like you said earlier, the local deals with Zaxby's and the Takis and, the smaller-ish stuff that's, good walking around money and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's not a sustainable model. That's like, I think Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State, those schools have proven over the past 5-6 years, they've got, models set up for success year after year. It's repeatable, NIL or not. And Texas A&M, while they've recruited well, they haven't landed this number one class until they can just back up Brinks truck after Brinks truck. So
I could definitely see still a lot of movement in the portal with that class.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I agree. Now, unless they go out and they win the national championship next year, it could be, who knows, it could be a lot different. But that doesn't prevent portal movement, as we've seen both Alabama and Georgia have their fair share of people moving after both playing in the national championship game. And our last question of the night, the Swamp Fox. How close was Luther Burden to signing with Georgia? Well, all I can tell you is this, is that I know, based on as good as sources as I've got, that Luther Burden was in contact with Georgia as close as an hour and a half to 2 hours before he went into the YMCA there, or boys club, wherever he signed at over there in East St. Louis. And Georgia thought that his family had, the gear, everything ready to go. And then he goes in and it ends up being Missouri. So that's pretty close in my opinion, Trent.
Yeah, I definitely think Georgia was definitely right there, and especially having that last visit. Georgia was pretty confident going into that decision. Again, that's when Neal came in, and that Missouri, Missouri was going to find a way to keep him at home, and they forked it over and did, and I mean, you're going to see those situations, especially with in-home guys or in-state guys, or they're going to make sure, hey, we're going to make sure he don't leave the state. And I think Georgia went to a similar approach with Michael Williams. Said, "Hey, we're going to make sure this kid, we land this kid. We need this kid. We will make sure we land this kid." And I think Georgia took a similar approach there. But you're gonna lose some with Neal in these situations, and I think that him visiting Georgia late and also at the same time with Georgia having all the momentum there and being right there at the very end, kind of, I guess, upped up the Neal money to Missouri. So that's what we're working with now. That's the world of recruiting.
No doubt. And it is fast paced. It is ever changing. Jed, Trent, and I constantly are putting out stuff over there at UGAsports.com. So make sure you've signed up. We appreciate everyone submitting their vault questions tonight. And guys, we'll be back at it next Monday for another live show here on the YouTube. The Georgia Football is the name of it, the name of the channel, but it's the UGA Sports YouTube channel. So if you didn't catch the full thing, you want to replay, we'll also have the podcast format out tomorrow morning sometime on UGA Sports as well. So for Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer, and this has been UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.